Give me a minute. I want to respond to all of the commentators who are worried about a Donald Trump second term. And you're not wrong to be worried about that. It's a real concern, right? Orange Jesus is a narcissistic, self indulgent traitor to our allies, to NATO, to our country, to our democratic principles. He's a puppet of Putin's who is motivated only by his own unenlightened short term self interest. He will gladly throw anybody under the bus, regardless of how loyal they have been to him. I mean, believe me, as an American, it is embarrassing how so many of my fellow Americans were seduced by this cheap snake oil salesman. I mean, it's just ridiculous. This phony fraudster. Anyway, you're worried about him, and I understand. And so I want to do something. Want to do a little experiment here that I kind of stole from Beau of the Fifth Column over on YouTube. He might be here on TikTok too, but he's definitely very big on YouTube. Great insight, this guy. And when he did this, I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I'm gonna do the same thing. So stolen right from Beau. Credit to Beau. And go give him a follow if you don't follow. You're worried about Trump. Now, here's what you got to understand about the United States electoral politics. Only 28% of the country is Republican. Only about 38% of the country is Democratic. And the rest are independents who will vote any way their little hearts desire, mostly based on the candidate. So, if we take a look here, these are the primary polls. These are only Republicans voting for a Republican. How did Donald Trump do? Well, if we take a look, let's see. In the 80s, he had 2. In the 70s percentiles, he had 3. And in the 60s, he had 3. This is from Super Tuesday, which is the biggest day in the primary election season. So 2, 3, and 3. And then let's look at the rest here. In the 80s, we go from 2 to 3. So he had 3 in the 80s. In the 70s, he had 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in the 70s. Then if we go down to the 60s, 60%, he's not even getting, he's not even getting 60, well, that's about 70%. Okay. So a couple in the 60s and then one in the 50s, Vermont, which he actually looks like he just edged out a win in Vermont. Originally, that was called for Nikki Haley. But he did lose D.C., right? He didn't even win in D.C. So in Vermont, he couldn't get half of his own party to vote for him. That's the reality. And what's more important, of those voters that did not vote for him in Vermont, 69% said they wouldn't vote for him in the general election. They will not vote for Trump again. It's just that simple. And so this is how Trump is doing in the primaries, when you should be killing it, right? Let's compare that to Joe Biden. Look at these numbers. 89%, 89 and a half, so 90%, 89%, 90% again, 82%, 90%, 82%, 93%. You got 170% there. The others are almost all 90%. Then over here, right, 92. We got one more 70, 2 more 70s. The rest are all then in the 80s and 90s. So for the larger party, the party with 38% of the country in it, Joe Biden has real momentum, real support. He's not fighting to get the support of his own party. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is fighting to get the support of his own party. It's only in the most ruby red states that Donald Trump has any kind of a chance. And if those Nikki Haley voters swing the other way and show up and vote for Biden, he may not even have a chance in those places. So he's struggling to just get half of his own party to vote for him. Make no mistake, Donald Trump is done. Donald Trump, it is foolish beyond words. And it is a sign of deep corruption and failure inside the Republican Party that they can't shake him off, no matter what they do. I don't know what he has on these people, what kind of a hold, what kind of a grip, but to let him be the candidate is to ensure their failure in November. And now he's got his daughter-in-law in charge of the Republican Party. Don't worry, Republicans. There's nothing about that that can possibly go wrong. For the rest of you, nothing at all. I wouldn't give it a second thought.